In November 2023, four people with zero equity in a $90 billion company tried to destroy it over a weekend. Their entire justification fit into 6 words. And the fallout involved a secret 52-page dossier sent via disappearing emails, a wooden effigy burned in a forest, 97% of employees threatening to quit, and a smoke machine setting off the fire alarms at the victory party. And all of it traces back to one thing: the legal structure of a company and the lived reality of that company had quietly become 2 completely different things. When they collided, it nearly took everything down with it. On November 17th, 2023, Sam Altman clicked a Google Meet link from a Las Vegas hotel and learned that he had 5 minutes before a blog post would announce his firing as CEO of OpenAI. Microsoft, the company's largest investor at $13 billion, got roughly 60 seconds of warning. I'm Sam Suhan, and I've spent months inside the documents, depositions, and interviews surrounding this crisis. What I found is a case study in something I'm calling structural drift. It's what happens when an organization's formal governance stays fixed while the actual organization quietly becomes something else entirely. The formal structure becomes decorative. Then one day someone tries to use it for its intended purpose, and the entire thing detonates. Here's how OpenAI's gap between charter and reality grew so wide that nobody noticed until it was too late. Before I get into the corporate architecture, I need you to picture something. September 2022, a leadership offsite at the Tenaya Lodge in the Sierra Nevada. OpenAI's chief scientist, Ilya Sutskever, has commissioned a wooden effigy from a local artist. It represents a good and aligned AI that turned out to be lying and deceitful. Researchers in bathrobes form a semicircle beneath ancient redwoods. Sutskever douses the effigy in lighter fluid and sets it ablaze. They watch in silence. At the 2022 holiday party, Sutskever led employees chanting, "Feel the AGI." Staff created a custom Slack reaction emoji. 3 employees told reporters he had started acting like some sort of spiritual leader. This is one of the 4 people who had unilateral legal authority to fire the CEO of an $86 billion company. To understand how that's possible, you need to understand the structure. OpenAI was incorporated in December 2015 as a tax-exempt nonprofit, a 501c3, incorporated in Delaware. Its founding donors, including Altman, Elon Musk, Reid Hoffman, and Peter Thiel, pledged $1 billion, though only about $130 million was actually collected. The charter declared a fiduciary duty not to investors, not to employees, to humanity. There is no precedent in corporate law for a fiduciary duty that broad. It meant the board could justify almost any action as long as they believed it served the species. By 2019, it became clear that donations couldn't fund the billions needed to train frontier AI models. So the board created something unusual, a capped profit subsidiary called OpenAI Global LLC, managed by the nonprofit through a holding company. Investors and employees could earn returns, but those returns were capped at 100x for the first round. Anything beyond that cap flowed back to the nonprofit. The operating agreement contained a sentence that still makes my jaw drop every time I read it. Investors should view their money, quote, in the spirit of a donation, with the understanding that it may be difficult to know what role money will play in a post-AGI world, end quote. The nonprofit's 6-person board was the supreme governing authority over everything. Microsoft held a roughly 49% profits interest, but 0 governance rights. No investor had a board seat, a veto, or any protective provision. This structure made perfect sense in 2019. It made progressively less sense every month after ChatGPT launched in November 2022 and reached 100 million users in 2 months. By late 2023, the structural drift had become a chasm. The board governed a nonprofit with a safety mission that happened to run a commercial subsidiary. The employees, the investors, and Microsoft worked at an $86 billion technology company that happened to have a nonprofit parent. Both versions were internally coherent, both were defensible on their own terms. They just couldn't coexist in the same boardroom. And the board that governed one of the fastest growing companies in history, beyond Suitskever, it included Adam D'Angelo, the Quora CEO, whose AI platform Poe directly competed with OpenAI's GPT store, a conflict no one addressed. Helen Toner, a Georgetown academic, Tasha McCauley, a roboticist. None of them had experience governing a company at this scale. These 4 people had the legal authority to fire Sam Altman with 0 notice. That authority was about to collide with reality. The coup did not happen overnight. In his sworn October 2025 disposition in the Musk versus Altman lawsuit, Suitskever revealed he had been contemplating Altman's removal for at least a year before it happened. And he crystallized his reasoning in a single sentence. Quote, "I don't think Sam is the guy who should have the finger on the button for AGI. The problem was board composition. With Reid Hoffman, Siobhan Zealous, and Will Hurd on the board, all considered Altman friendly, the votes weren't there. But across 2023, all 3 departed. Hoffman over his conflicts with his own AI investments. Zealous, quietly, Hurd for a quixotic presidential campaign, and their seats were never filled because the remaining directors couldn't agree on replacements. That left 4 members: Suitskever, Toner, McCauley, and D'Angelo. 3 of the 4 were ready to vote him out. I was waiting for a moment when the board dynamics would allow for Altman to be replaced, Suitskever testified. That the majority of the board is obviously friendly with Sam. The chief scientist of one of the most consequential organizations in the world spent a year watching board seats empty, waiting for the arithmetic to tip in his favor. In October 2023, the catalyst arrived. Suitskever and CTO Myra Murati approached the independent board members with what Toner described as really serious conversations. They used the phrase psychological abuse. They said Altman cultivated a toxic culture of lying. Murati reportedly told the board that Altman had a simple playbook. First, say whatever he needed to get you to do what he wanted. And second, if that didn't work, undermine you or destroy your credibility. Suitskever compiled his evidence into a 52-page memo. Its opening line: Sam exhibits a consistent pattern of lying, undermining his execs, and pitting his execs against one another. He sent it only to the 3 independent directors using Gmail's disappearing message feature. When asked in his deposition why he used self-destructing emails, his answer was, "Because I was worried that those memos will somehow leak." When asked why he didn't send it to Altman, he answered, "Because I felt that, had he become aware of these discussions, he would just find a way to make them disappear." Toner, in a May 2024 interview, laid out the specific instances behind the board's 6-word justification. And those 6 words were not consistently candid in his communications. That was it. The entire stated reason for firing the CEO of an $86 billion company. 2 instances stand out for their concreteness. When ChatGPT launched in November 2022, the most consequential product launch in AI history, the board was not informed in advance. Toner's words were, "We learned about ChatGPT on Twitter." And when OpenAI's restricted agreements threatening to claw back departing employees vested equity became public, Altman said he hadn't been aware of the specific provisions. Vox later obtained incorporation documents from April 2023 bearing his signature that explicitly authorized them. Now, Sam Altman has his own defenses of these accusations. He didn't think ChatGPT would be that big. The clawback language was boilerplate and he didn't pay special attention to it, but that's besides the point. Here is the detail that keeps nagging at me. Much of the memo's content came from a single source, Mira Murati. Sutskever admitted under oath that he never independently verified several key claims, including allegations that Altman had been pushed out from Y Combinator for similar behaviors. When asked why he didn't verify with Brockman directly, he said, "It didn't occur to me." In hindsight, he conceded, secondhand knowledge is an invitation for further investigation. Even if every concern that memo might be legitimate, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, a 52-page document built partly on unverified secondhand claims, distributed via disappearing messages, used to justify the termination of a CEO running an $86 billion company with no advance notice to investors, that is not a process. Thursday, November 16th, 2023, the Ford board members held a video call and voted to fire Altman. They had de jure authority, meaning by law, the documents gave them this power. What they didn't have was de facto power, meaning in practice, the ability to make it stick. That evening, Murati was informed she would become interim CEO of OpenAI. Friday, November 17th, noon. Altman clicked the Google Meet link. Sutskever read a prepared statement. Altman recalled, "It was very strange. I couldn't get any questions answered. I really did, in that first moment, think I was having some crazy, vivid dream." 19 minutes later, Brockman was told he was removed from the board. By 12:30, the blog post was live. Altman's email and computer access were immediately deactivated. That evening, as he prepared to fly back to San Francisco, Oliver Mulherin put his hands on Sam's shoulders at the foot of the airplane stairs. "Sam, I'm with you 100% no matter what, but what the F did you do?" Implying he might have done something horrible. Altman said, "Gosh, no." Oliver said, "Okay, I'm good," and they boarded the plane. Saturday, Altman had a call with two board members who floated his return. His first reaction was absolutely not. His second was, "I will come back if all of you resign right now." He later called this not a constructive thing and said a more diplomatic response might have ended the crisis that morning. That evening, Altman tweeted, "I love the OpenAI team so much," and employees began quote tweeting it with heart emojis en masse. A coordinated signal of loyalty, a head count of who would follow him out the door. It was most of the company, the first tremor of de facto power making itself felt. Sunday, negotiations mediated by Satya Nadella continued all day. The board agreed in principle to resign, then reversed course and installed Emmett Shear, the former Twitch co-founder, as interim CEO. Shear was on paternity leave with a 9-month-old son. He put the odds of human extinction from AI somewhere between 5 and 50%. He accepted it after reflecting, quote, for just a few hours. Meanwhile, the board was scrambling for alternatives. GitHub CEO Nat Friedman and Scale AI CEO Alex Wang both turned them down. They contacted Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei about replacing Altman and even proposed merging the two companies entirely. Toner was, quote, the most supportive of the merger. Sutskever was, quote, very unhappy about it. Amodei declined both proposals. Then, Nadella made the single most decisive move of the entire crisis. He publicly announced that Altman and Brockman would lead a new Microsoft AI research team with positions available for every OpenAI employee at matched compensation. Microsoft calculated the cost of absorbing the entire team at approximately $25 billion. Nadella later called it In a world of bad choices, definitely not my preferred thing, but the worst outcome would have been all of these people to leave and they go to our competition. The announcement gave Altman leverage, gave employees a credible exit, and applied existential pressure on the board. Microsoft stock rose 2% to near all-time highs. The board had de jure authority, the legal right, but the de facto coalition assembling against them, the employees, the investors, and the market itself, left them with no moves. Now, Monday morning, November 20th. Before I tell you about the letter that ended this, I need to tell you about a wedding. In 2019, Ilya officiated Greg Brockman's wedding at the OpenAI offices. A robotic hand served as ring bearer. On Sunday, November 19th, Anna Brockman, Greg's wife, went to the offices. She cried. She pleaded with Sutskever to change his mind. Sutskever had officiated their wedding. Now he'd tried to destroy the company the groom co-founded. The weight of that broke something. Monday morning, Sutskever posted his regret publicly. And that same day, the exchange happened that captures the philosophical chasm at the heart of everything. When OpenAI executives warned that Altman's absence would destroy the company and that this contradicted the board's mission, Toner responded that destruction, quote, could be consistent with the mission. Even Sutskever testified he disagreed. Quote, at that point in time, the answer was definitely no for me. To Toner, the mission was the load-bearing element. If the company had to be destroyed to protect it, so be it. To the 770 employees who built ChatGPT, the company was the mission. By Monday evening, 745 of approximately 770 employees had signed a letter threatening mass resignation. The signatories included Marathi, COO Brad Lightcap, and astonishingly, Sutskever himself. Tuesday, November 21st, Scheer told the board he would resign too. By 10 p.m., Altman was back as CEO with a new board chaired by Brett Taylor alongside Larry Summers and Adam D'Angelo. 3 of the 4 directors who had fired him were gone. At the offices, someone brought a smoke machine to the victory celebration. It triggered the fire alarm and dispatched 2 fire trucks. The new board hired WilmerHale to investigate. The law firm reviewed 30,000 documents and conducted dozens of interviews. Their conclusions threaded a diplomatic needle. The prior board acted within its broad discretion to fire Altman, but his conduct did not mandate removal. And then there's the line that quietly devastates the board's entire framing. The firing, WilmerHale found, did not arise from concerns regarding product safety or security, the pace of development, OpenAI's finances, or its statements to investors. The board that justified its actions as protecting humanity from unsafe AI, the independent investigation found that safety wasn't even the issue. It was a breakdown in trust between a board and a CEO. Larry Summers reportedly told people privately that the investigation found, quote, many instances of Altman saying different things to different people, end quote, but to a degree that the new board decided, quote, didn't preclude him from continuing to run the company, end quote. No employees actually left for Microsoft, not one. The threat of 97% of the company walking out had been the ultimate negotiating lever. It worked without a single person following through. But exercising the safety mechanism destroyed the safety mechanism. The board members who cared most about keeping OpenAI accountable to its mission were removed. Sutskever departed in May 2024 and founded Safe Superintelligence Incorporated. Then Jan Leica left. Leica had co-led the Super Alignment team, the group Sutskever had built specifically to solve the problem of keeping superhuman AI systems aligned with human values. It had been promised 20% of OpenAI's compute. If anyone represented the institutional commitment to safety, It was Leica. He went to Anthropic, and on his way out, he wrote, quote, "We finally reached a breaking point," end quote. When the person running your safety research concludes that safety research is no longer viable at your company, the safety infrastructure isn't declining, it's gone. Moradi departed that September. By August 2024, nearly half of all AGI safety researchers had left. The profit cap was eliminated. The nonprofit became a foundation. Altman, who held zero equity during the crisis, was reportedly in discussions for a 7% stake. The valuation hit $500 billion. Every structural guardrail the original charter put in place to prevent exactly this outcome was dismantled in the aftermath of the one serious attempt to use them. The charter described one organization. Reality had built another. When the charter tried to assert itself, reality won. And then reality rewrote the charter to make sure it could never happen again. And this is what makes the OpenAI crisis more than a Silicon Valley soap opera. Every organization carries formal structures designed for a version of itself that may no longer exist. Most of the time, the gap between the document and the reality is invisible. It becomes visible only when someone leans on the wall and discovers it's no longer load-bearing. Toner and Macaulay warned in an Economist op-ed that, quote, "self-governance cannot reliably withstand the pressure of profit incentives," end quote. They were probably right, though the pressure didn't come from investors or shareholders. It came from 745 people who chose their CEO over their board, a partner willing to absorb the whole team for $20 billion, and a structure that was only as durable as the shared belief that sustained it. That's structural drift in its terminal phase. Governance documents describe an organization, but the organization people actually experience is built from accumulated practice, shared investment, and the interpretive frames that hundreds of people carry to work every morning. When those two versions diverge far enough, the document becomes decorative. The lived version becomes the real charter. Now, this story is really about power. Who has it, who thinks they have it, and what happens when those two groups discover they're different people. I talk about this a lot. And so if you like this video, please subscribe for more and join my free newsletter, link in the description. I'll see you in the next video.